to individuals with Hebraic names, as found here. So we have a lot of material in our collection dealing with in the Judean exiles in Babylonia. As a side sort of issue, I thought you might be interested. Most people have never heard about it, but actually a number of years ago, an archive of documents was found in Iraq, which actually come from the city of Judah. This is the city that the Judean exiles were located in Babylonia. We think it was near Nippur. So we have a whole treasure trove of documents from the Judean exiles with numerous Judean names, Hebraic names, and West Semitic names, where we find how they were quite well assimilated into Mesopotamian culture. Most of these are not, there's about 100 or more of them. Most of them are not yet published, but when they do get published, in fact, a book has just appeared in the last few days, scholars are going to be salivating over these documents. Now, Koldewey found a lot of the work done by Nebuchadnezzar at Babylon, by his father, Nabopolassar, by earlier kings, and by later kings as well. And we see that Babylon was a very, very impressive building in the Neo-Babylonian period. I mentioned we saw the overview of the processional way leading up to the Ishtar Gateway, and so I'm just showing you a few photos of the remains that were found by Koldewey. We can see the walls and towers lined with impressions of animals. This actually was below the ground level. Below the ground level, they were just in regular brick. Above the level, they were in glazed brick panels. This is what the model of what we think the entryway to the main processional entryway to the city looked like. And as I said, it's been restored, rebuilt in the Pergamon Museum in Berlin. And if any of you go to Berlin, you really must see it. It's a very, very impressive structure, and they've got a number of very fabulous other things as well. And again, another reconstruction of it here, with images of lions and sort of dragons and bulls on it. The lion associated with the goddess Ishtar, the bull associated with the god Adad, and the dragon with the god of Babylon, Marduk. Here we see a lion. A number of these, so this is how the Babylonians decorated their palaces. Up in Assyria, there was stone, we have stone wall reliefs, but down in Babylonia, there was very, very little stone. So for decoration, they did molded brick and then glazed and decorated them in various colors. This is what it looks like today, an aerial view, the Ishtar Gateway going down here, the southern palace here, northern palace up here, Saddam Hussein's palace there, an artificial mound. We have found by the Germans the great temple of Marduk, which is just what, and we saw a reconstruction of it there. Now, but why are we here today? The Hanging Gardens of Babylon. Now, where were they? Well, I don't know. I'll tell you right up front. I haven't the foggiest notion where they were. There have been at least 7 proposals for locating them at Babylon. And we will look at them very, very briefly. We don't want to go into too great details about them. And also, what did they look like as well? Based upon the Greek descriptions of them, what may they have looked like? So this is what we're going to look at first. Now, as I said, there's really about 5 major classical writers describing the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. Berosus is one of them, being quoted by Josephus and by other people. So if you sort of pull all this stuff together, and they're contradictory without any doubt in certain places, sort of what are the things are we told about the Hanging Gardens of Babylon? Well, one says they're inner close to a palace, another besides an acropolis, on the summit of an acropolis or citadel, another one next to the Euphrates. Okay, maybe close to the palace, on a mound near the Euphrates, maybe. Who built them? Well, actually, only one document, Berosus says Nebuchadnezzar. One says not Semiramis, but a later Syrian king. Now, Semiramis was I don't like to say legendary great queen who conquered the world, but something along those lines in Greek history. We tend to think that she's sort of an amalgam of 2 Assyrian queens who were very important. Not that they ever ruled independently, but that they were very important. One called Samuramat, and so you can sort of get Semiramis, Samuramat, some of the consonants are the same, the vowels. Okay, this is a Semitic language, consonants are important, vowels can change around. That's being a bit loose, but it's sort of the idea. And another queen. But it's not this person, but a later Syrian king. Now, Syrian, what do they mean by that? From the Greek point of view, someone over that way, which could include Mesopotamia by Syria from their point of view. If you're off in Greece, it's off there. Particularly when Assyria and, of course, Syria are connected, so the area. One says it's the king of Assyria who reigned over Babylonia. Why was it built? For a wife, a concubine, a Persian wife, for her home, as a memory of the mountains from which she came from. Quite clearly, what all of them indicate along the lines is the idea of a mountain or terraces or a theater with sort of going up and up and up, sort of like a very steep theater with a seating down where you are. I mean, it's rather flat here, but I'm sure you've all been up in balconies in theaters where it's very, very steep going down, or you've seen a Greek theater. So they're all pretty good about that. A number of them emphasize the use of stone. Very, very little stone in Mesopotamia, particularly down in Babylonia. Particularly large blocks to actually do anything with. Problem. Size, well, difficult. One of them that we read said for plethora, which is about 30 meters, say 100 feet on a side. Top level, the height of the city wall, or about 25 meters, 75 feet, 80 feet along those lines. Supported by galleries, often with vaulted rooms, so vaults underneath to get it up, thick walls to support them, and a couple of them mention machinery for raising water to get them up on these terraces. One of them actually specifically mentions the use of the screw, Archimedes screw. And if you don't know what that is, don't worry about it. We'll come back to that later. But this is sort of a number of the things that these inscriptions point out. But in particularly, appearance of a mountain, terraces, theater. We should keep those in mind. Okay. Where do people suggest it may have been? Back in the 1880s, approximately, a man by the name of Hormuz Drassam, who was involved with the British excavations in Iraq, he did some work at Babylon. This is before Koldovay. And he suggested that a mound, which is about 60 feet high, sort of on the northern part of the city, was the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. Now, this is the most prominent sort of mound in this area. Well, before Saddam Hussein built his palace on a mound. And remember, some of them suggested it was on an acropolis. It's close to the Euphrates River, as mentioned. The structure that was found in there by Koldewey seems to have been a monumental building of some type, a palace perhaps, or some people think a sort of a fort area for a defensive work. There's a very interesting set of 3 stone wells here, set close together and linked by an underground water channel. So he suggested, because of this, okay, maybe this was where the Hanging Gardens. It fits a certain number of things. But from the other documents, you sort of get the idea that it's in the main part of the city, not very far out. The fact there's 3 wells, okay, you're going to need wells in any palace to get water anyway, even if you are close to the river. So, possible suggestion, generally has been totally abandoned by people ever since. Next suggestion, well, one that goes back to a man associated with Penn, Sir Leonard Woolley, who was involved with the excavations at Ur, as you all know. He excavated at Ur a ziggurat, or staged temple tower, and he had the idea that on the terraces of the one at Ur was mainly just 3 levels, but in the Neo-Babylonian period it had more. There were plantings, gardens, plants upon them. He found sort of little, I don't like to say holes on the platforms, which he thought were used for drainage, sort of weeper holes, so that you could have plants up there, water them, and then the water run out. Yeah, maybe. People who now work with these think that they weren't weeper holes for drainage, but they were to help dry the interior of mud brick, to sort of I'm not an archaeologist. I'm a historian philologist, so I don't want to get into that argument. The ziggurat at Babylon would have been the most prominent feature of the city. Mesopotamia is flat as a pancake. To have a structure that was about 300 feet high really would have stood out. And particularly if the top level is glazed, as we're told, in blue glazed bricks. In the sun, it would have been extremely, extremely impressive. Now, you look at the 7 wonders of the world. In large part, one of the main things about them is they're tall, they're big. The Great Pyramid, a lighthouse that's vastly tall. The statue of Helios at Rhodes, again, it's supposed to be a mammoth statue, whether the 2 legs were on different sides of the harbor with the boats going through the middle, as some people suggest, maybe, maybe not. But still, massive height as well. The mausoleum, Ptolemaios, and also the Temple of Ephesus were major, major structures. And the statue of Zeus was known for monumentality as well, the one at Olympia. So